together, the top level and the bottom level, and you want to think about it all together. Okay, when making a decision, I feel that more than one of these options can be the right choice. So again, you're more interested in finding the balance between two things. I apologize when I'm on Zoom here. I won't be able to see as easily if you have a question. So please speak up and interrupt me if you have a question, because I can't see your faces as well. Okay, so different ways of thinking about stuff. Dichotomistic or holistic? Status focused or achievement focused? Are you trying to get the highest status? Are you trying to become big man? Are you trying to make people praise you and and want people to give you a high title? Or are you more interested in getting things done even if nobody actually sees you do it? Are you proud that you completed something great even if nobody else praises you? That's down here, achievement focused. Or if you want the praise, you want people to give you a title and give you praise, that's up here, status focused. Okay? So again, these are the numbers that you're getting here. If you get status focused or achievement focused, where you put them on your chart. Crisis orientation and non-crisis orientation. This one drives my wife crazy because in America, we are very crisis oriented. What crisis oriented means is that we try to prevent the crisis from happening. So we plan ahead. We think about what's coming next week, what's coming next month, what's coming next year, and we plan ahead to try to make sure that no crisis arises. Non-crisis oriented means you just wait for things to happen and then you respond to the crisis. So in a crisis oriented group, if we thought that our village might get flooded by a big wave, we would go out and we would prepare sandbags and build walls and try, or maybe even move our houses and try to prevent the waves from destroying our houses. In a non-crisis oriented culture, you would say, well, we'll see what happens. And once the waves came, you would go out there and you would rebuild and you would respond after. So it's a difference between whether you prepare ahead or don't prepare ahead. We see this here in the Philippines where they are non-crisis oriented. So even things like giving us an announcement for something that's coming up in my kid's school. So the teacher will tell us maybe less than one day that we need to prepare something for my kid's school. We need to bring something to a school. Well, for Americans, that just created a crisis because they want me to have something ready for tomorrow. But now I have to change my schedule today to try to fix that. So it's a crisis that I have to now have some stress. I have to go buy something maybe or prepare something. Versus in America, we would tell you at least a week ahead, I want you to prepare this. So that way we prevent the crisis. We're crisis oriented, so we prevent the crisis by preparing ahead. In non-crisis, you just, oh, we need it now, so let's deal with it now. You kind of go as you go there. All right, and then the last one here, concealment of vulnerability and willingness to expose vulnerability. Do you hide the areas where you're not good, or do you share the areas where you're not good at something? Let's look at an example of one of these. So 3 is concealing, and 9 is willing to share it. So 3 would be I avoid setting goals for fear that I might not reach them. All right, so You're afraid to be vulnerable, which means like to be disappointed either in yourself or have somebody else disappointed in you. So you don't set a goal because you're afraid you're going to conceal that part where you might fail. All right. But number 9, I'm always one of the first to try something new. So even if you're not good at it, you're willing to go try something new because you're not afraid to be bad at it. Okay. You're not afraid that somebody's going to make fun of you. You're willing to show your weakness, your areas where you're not good, but you'll jump in and try something new. So that's what this one is. So if you put all those points in here, there will be differences between everybody in class because you are different people, right? So even within the same culture, you have different values. Some of you are more event-oriented, some of you are more time-oriented, but as a whole, your whole culture, everybody, if we took the average of everybody in class, you would end up with a marking somewhere down in here, most likely, because P&G is overall event-oriented. If you asked the expats on campus, the New Zealanders, the Americans, we would end up with points up here somewhere. Okay, so overall we'd be kind of split across there. But each individual you'll show up differently. Some of you might be down here, some might be over here. You'd be kind of different spots around here. But overall it'd be under the bottom. Okay, so we can use this to try to figure out a little bit more about a culture and what they value. And once we know that, it can help us to adapt. So I know that here in the Philippines, they are non-crisis oriented, and we are crisis oriented, but we Americans are crisis oriented. So this one is a very hard one for us because they give us very little time to get ready for something, which creates a mental crisis for us. It creates a problem for us. So it makes it very frustrating for us to be here. But if a Filipino or a non-crisis oriented person came to America, they wouldn't have any problem with it because we would tell them ahead of time and it would be fine for them, and they would just adapt to that. So some of these are bothered more by others than some are. So it doesn't go both ways, is what I mean. So a crisis oriented person can be frustrated by a non-crisis, but a non-crisis oriented person is not as frustrated by a crisis oriented. Does that make sense? So knowing where you are and knowing the culture that you're going to can help you to be a better minister of the gospel to them. So this is something that's good to figure out on the place that you plan to serve if you're going outside of P&G. All right. All right, so now talking about culture. All right, this is a funny video of, hopefully you can hear it and understand it well. It's about this is an TV advertisement by a bank, but they are showing differences in culture and how they might have miscommunication if you don't understand the culture.
Ciao, Sophia.
Sorry.
Niente.
Sorry.
In Italy, different flowers have different meanings. Chrysanthemums, for example, are associated with funerals and sadness.
Sophia è morta.
At HSBC, we never underestimate the importance of local knowledge. HSBC, the world's local.
If you're going to do business internationally, you should be with a bank that knows about international business. HSBC Commercial Banking spans 64 countries and territories around the globe.
Look at this. With your machines, I make 10 times more losses than I used to. Have it?
Your business success is out there. Is your bank?
In some Asian cities, it's considered acceptable for a commuter to fall asleep on the shoulder of a stranger. In New York, it's quite a different story. Of course, it could always adapt. We're the global bank that never underestimates the importance of local knowledge. HSBC, the world's local bank.
好容易就簡單啦，就咁就發達。
大家飲杯，飲杯，飲杯，得啦！大家食啊！好嘢啊！好食啊！湯飲埋先。
The English believe it's a slur on your host's food if you don't clear your plate. Whereas the Chinese feel you're questioning their generosity if you do.
買少啲啊！
好，馬上嚟。
At HSBC, we never underestimate the importance of local knowledge. Which is why we have local banks staffed by local people in over 80 countries across the globe.
哎呀！伙計。
HSBC, the world's local bank.
In America, if you hit a hole-in-one, you're expected to buy everyone a drink. However, in Japan, it's traditional to buy your playing partners expensive gifts.
Same hole.
At HSBC, we never underestimate the importance of local knowledge.
From Mosby, we can see the video.
HSBC, the world's
Mosby,
local bank.
Mosby can't see the video. We can only hear, but we can't see any video.
Oh, could you guys see it in bands?
Yes. We've seen nothing from the beginning, nothing.
So bands can see it, but Port Moresby cannot. Doesn't really make sense to me. Let me see. Now, Port Moresby?
Not yet. Not yet.
Can you see the slide?
No.
See the PowerPoint that says purpose of culture?
No.
But you can see the camera, like you can see me and you can see Vans.
We see you in our event in Vans, but we can't see the video play.
Maybe you have to change the screen because you're not seeing, like I'm sharing the screen. So maybe you have it's set to look at the the pictures instead of the shared screen. Can you see yet? Port Moresby, you cannot.
Port Moresby not yet. On the screen, it's written. Stephen is sharing the screen, but nothing. It's just black.
It must be a problem on your side because bands can see it. Could you see when I was showing the basic values earlier?
Yeah, we were able to see the document, but when you were moving the mouse, we couldn't see the mouse moving around on the document. When you were pointing to things, we couldn't see that.
Okay, but you can see this now?
No.
I wonder if you need to like leave Zoom and come back in, if that's possible. I don't know. Because I'm sharing the screen you saw before, but now you can't see it.
We have a weak internet connection, so that's also a possibility that it's conserving data for the connection.
Okay. Well, anyway, we can just I'll just explain. I'll put the video. I'll put the link for the video on Cluster if you want to watch it again. But basically, it goes through different scenarios of miscommunication. In the first video, the man doesn't understand the culture in Italy, so he sees a girl that he likes, and he takes flowers and puts them by her house. But he doesn't realize that that kind of flower, those white chrysanthemums is the name of that flower, those flowers in Italy are only for funerals if someone has died. So he puts the flowers outside her house, and then all the neighbors see them and think that she has died, and so they all bring flowers for her and put them outside her house. But she hadn't died. He just was trying to show her that he liked her. All right, the second video, this company is trying to figure out why their washing machines are selling so much in India. And so he goes to India to find out why. And the place that does the laundry, that does the wash, they don't use the washing machines. It's a store that's using it to make a drink. They're using washing machines to stir a drink for customers. And so it's just a different idea of how you can you can contextualize your business. So that's what all businesses do that too. When they go international, they have to change the packaging on their products. Maybe they change what they sell. For example, in the Philippines, if you go to McDonald's, they will sell noodles at McDonald's to eat, but in America, there are no noodles on the menu, so you cannot buy them there. So there's just different things that companies adapt to different cultures. Another video showed a group of Chinese businessmen bringing a British person to a restaurant, and at that restaurant, they served some kind of eel, like a long, skinny fish, to the man. And in the United Kingdom, it's considered impolite to not finish all of your food. If someone serves you a plate of food and you don't eat it all, then you might insult your host because they think you don't like the food. So you need to finish your plate. But if you go to China, you should not finish your plate because then they think that they didn't feed you enough. You didn't fill up. They didn't feed you enough. And so this was just a funny clip of him eating the whole fish, and then they brought him out a bigger fish, and he ate the whole fish because he thought he needed to eat it all. And the Chinese people thought that he needed more food, so then they started bringing out a giant fish, and that's where it ended. It was just being funny. Another clip showing that in many countries in Asia, it's okay to lay your head on someone. If you're traveling on a PMV or on a train, it's okay to put your head on someone's shoulder that you don't know, on a stranger. You can sleep laying on them. But in America, you can't do that. People will not like it. Can you do that in PNG? Can you lay your head on a stranger's shoulder on the PMV? No. Okay. All right. So same as America, you can't do it. But in Asian countries, you can. And then the last video was about playing golf. That in America, if you hit the ball and it goes in on the first hit, then you have to buy a drink for everybody that you're playing with. But in I can't remember if it said what country, in Japan maybe, you have to buy expensive golf equipment for your people that you're playing with instead. And so the second time the man, he got it in once, and the second time he tried to miss, but he got it in again anyway. All right. So, Fort Moresby, you still can't see? Is that correct?
No. We'll try log off and log on again.
Let me try share my whole screen instead of just the. Can you see now?
No, we'll try leave and join again.
Okay. All right, let's try again, Port Moresby. All right, can you see?
Yes, we can see it now.
Okay.
Yes, we can see
All
it.
right. Okay, good. Purpose of culture. All right, one of the ways of knowing what the purpose of culture is might be create a list that of all that culture contains. So I'd like each of you to take 5 minutes or so on your own there. Make a list of what you believe are systems, things, and people found in every culture. If you like, you can make categories and fill them out with if you want, but make a list of what you think every culture in the world has. So take a moment to do that on a piece of paper, on your computer, your phone. Just make a quick list of if you went to every culture, what do you believe they have? All right, who would like to read off some things from your list? What did you come up with?
Good morning, Stephen. Jacob here from Barnes.
Yes. What
On
do
my
you
list,
have?
on my list, I got places of people, different geographic.
Okay. All right. Does anybody else have something else? What characteristics does every culture have in common? What systems or ideas have they come up with?
What must be, I just brainstormed a couple of things. I don't know if they're necessarily right or wrong, but I just came up with some things. Um, I'll just read through my list. Marriage, food, shelter, family units, religion, some form of agriculture, gardens, or looking after animals, animal husbandry, distribution systems, wealth, social status, eating manners. They might have an education system. They might have a form of governance, some form of system to reward record knowledge. So they might have some knowledge recording systems. They might have some ideas on how to raise children. They might have a cemetery where they bury the dead. They might have no-go zones or taboo areas that they're not allowed to go. They'll have weapons, tools. They'll have ornaments or oils and perfumes to beautify themselves, whatever that looks like, and clothing. Thank you.
Yeah, very good. Lots of good things there. Education, distribution, marriage, shelter, uh, something to do with cemeteries or death, clothing, lots of good things there. All right, so here's some ideas of there's many things that cultures have in common that every culture in the world has, but here's a few for you. Social structure and hierarchy. Every culture in the world has a way of ordering the people. Okay, there's somebody in charge, there's people below him or her. Okay, there's a social structure. There's marriage and family. Every culture has a way to join together a man and a woman and have marriage and to have a family system and have children. So sometimes it looks different. Sometimes the man has multiple wives. Sometimes the wife has multiple husbands. Sometimes it's not doesn't look the same like what we're expect that we are used to. But every culture has that. Every culture has clothing, like you said, whether it's woven fabric or it's made of leaves or furs. Every culture has a way of covering themselves. Every culture has shelter. There's a language, right? We all communicate with each other. No one just grunts and points. We all have a language. Teaching your children, like you said, education for your children. Every culture has this. Teach them what they need to know to survive in your culture. An economic system, a way to trade things, or a way to, maybe you don't trade, but you share in a way, but you have some kind of economy where you have you give items value, and then use that value to do something else with it, right? There is one sexual taboo that every culture has. I don't know if you know what this is, if you can guess, but cultures allow different relationships. Oh, we lost Port Moresby. All right. Well, the one uh, area that's off limits in every culture. Oh, here they're coming back on. All right, Port Moresby's back. Okay. So we're saying there's one sexual relationship that's not allowed in any culture. Any guess?
Sorry, Steven, what's the question?
A sexual relationship that's not allowed in every culture in the world. I was asking if you had a guess on which relationship that is. Sorry, you're very quiet there, Paul, if you're talking. Which part of the family? Yeah. Yeah, so which relationship is off limits? Do you know?
Sorry, Nathaniel here. I think what Paul is saying is one of the sexual.
Must be.
Can you hear us from Bans?
Hello.
Yeah, we heard you and then you cut out.
What Paul is sexual woman to relationship parallel caste.
Nope, that's yeah, but that's not off limits in every culture. It's more specific than that.
Okay. Most people will try and define it. Must be.
Yep. Go ahead.
Sexual taboo. We'd like to say that sexual taboo has always been in the history. We have never talked about it. We don't even talk about it in front of our parents or our brothers and sisters. It's a real taboo that no activities or no man-woman relationship cannot be spoken openly. And although now it's a new technology and people go into internet and all these things and they see sexual activities, but really in the olden times there was nothing on sexual conversation or sexual like you don't talk about it openly, not even with your brothers and sisters, not with even with your parents. It's just taboo.
Okay. Yeah, so in PNG culture, just talking about it is taboo. But specifically, I'm looking for one specific relationship globally that every culture says you cannot have.
Sorry, what must be again, Glen, I think one relationship you cannot have, one sexual taboo that's universal is within the nuclear family. I think that's specific to all cultures, I'm guessing.
Okay, so within the nuclear family, so parents and children.
That's correct, yes, that's what I...
So there are cultures where it is acceptable for a father to be with his daughter. Not in PNG, but in other cultures, there are some where the father and daughter is allowed. And it's not condemned. However, the one that's always condemned everywhere in every culture is mother with son. This is never, every culture in the world says this one is wrong. Port Moresby freeze. Oh, they're gone again. All right, so let's take a 5-minute break while we wait for them to come back. Yes.
And no, in some cultures, they still allow sexual relations. Yeah. Yeah. This is the heart of these missions. When you're going into a new culture, like Dr. Mani and Toke, when you go into a new culture, when you study culture, don't suspend judgment. Don't judge. It's different, so don't judge. You have to suspend your judgment. So this is what we are doing now. So this is what is trying to open us up to. So I think if everyone do that, no, one is eliminating. It's not the only thing that we don't do. So probably not really want to mouth and doing. Really have to mouth. So money mixing, I'm not going to try this. But it should be like, have the books of Bombay, I don't know. So Muslims like Western one, that's why we write it that way. This way the video is I understood where he was coming from. Then, Cloud, you got a report there. Yeah. And we do 4 minutes. But then we want a Western culture. Yeah. That's Western culture. No. It says law, Western countries, by law, they're not allowed. So it's their culture. They're not allowed to have a relationship with their siblings. Yeah. But it's not practiced within the family unit. Yeah. But two consenting adults. He's talking outside of our discussion. There is one taboo that is universal to all cultures. One taboo. That no culture that regarding this sexual taboo. Yeah. There's one taboo that you can find it in every culture. It is not allowed in all the cultures. That's what he's asking. That's what he's asking. So we have to find out. So as, like I said, when I said the nuclear family, it's universal. We don't allow it in all the countries. No, it's not. Yes. I want to know what did he say. Emma, break time. Steven, we lost Steven. I won't come back.
All right.
Once not going to break,
Yeah, so mother and son was what we said is every culture says that's not allowed. But everything else, there's some culture in the world that accepts everything else. Father and daughter, or brother and sister, or everything else. But mother and son is never acceptable anywhere. All right. So to define culture, what is culture? Who can give a one-sentence definition of culture?
Practice.
All right. So beliefs, customs, and you say systems?
Practice.
Practices. Anybody else want to define culture?
What must be? Culture is a shared pattern. It's a shared pattern, meaning culture involves pattern of behavior and interaction that are shared by members of the group.
Okay. So I have three different definitions here for you. First one, and I assume you can see the screen since no one said anything, but this should be on the screen right now. Definition of culture. A culture is a way of life of a group of people, the behaviors, beliefs, values, and symbols that they accept, generally without thinking about them, and that are passed along by communication and imitation from one generation to the next. All right, this is one definition of culture. Another definition, culture refers to the cumulative deposit of knowledge, experience, beliefs, values, attitudes, meanings, hierarchies, religion, notions of time, roles, spatial relationships, concepts of the universe, and material objects and possessions acquired by a group of people in the course of generations through individual and group striving. Yeah, that's got a lot of stuff in it, that definition. So these two have quite a bit of stuff, and then a simple definition. Culture is the systems of knowledge shared by a relatively large group of people. All right, so this kind of combines all of it together in a simple definition. So systems of knowledge, as long as we understand that systems of knowledge includes the beliefs, the values, the attitudes, the religion, all of that stuff. Sure. So culture can be not just a country's culture or a tribe's culture, but it can be a business culture. When you go to work for a company, the company has a culture within the business. How do we behave? What knowledge do we pass on from one employee to another employee? CLTC has a culture. So when you're living on campus, there's a culture of the campus of here's how we behave, here's what we do, here's what we believe, here's the what's expected of you. It's a culture on campus. So this culture can be by a relatively large group of people. So it doesn't necessarily have to be the same tribe or the same country, but you can be the same culture if you go to the same school, work at the same company. You can have a culture. All right, so we talked about different values earlier. We talked about time and event oriented. We talked about, dichotomistic versus holistic, these different cultural values. So now here's another way of looking at cultural values. So these are two different systems created by different anthropologists. So we had that first one, which was created by someone named Lingenfelter. His surname is Lingenfelter. He created the first one that you did, the cultural values profile, it's called, or basic values profile. Now we're going to look at different ideas by Hofstede and Allen. So these are another idea of the values of a culture. All right. First, let's talk about worldviews. 3 building blocks that make up the worldview of every society and culture. So every culture has these 3 ideas, but one of these is stronger in every culture. Okay, so there's a guilt, innocence view of the world, a shame, honor view, and a fear, power view. So every culture has these ideas within it. But one of these is stronger than the other ones. So first, guilt, innocence. Western culture's predominant concern with guilt, innocence, and the law is rooted in the foundation of the Roman Republic. No one was above the law, not even the ruler. Prior to this, the ruler was the law. Okay, so this guilt, innocence mostly comes from United States, Canada, Europe, where things are viewed as right and wrong. If you follow the law, then things are good. If you don't follow the law, then things are bad. So you have guilt and you have innocence. Are you guilty? Did you do it? Did you do the wrong thing? Or are you innocent? And this is how we view the world. So myself and all the expats on campus, we view the world. This is our worldview, is we view things as right and wrong, guilty or innocent. Okay, that's how we look at things. That's different from most Asian cultures and Middle Eastern cultures that look at shame and honor. In the East, relationships are centered on the shame-honor condition. Honor is the absence of shame. Saving face is more important than obedience to rules. So if you live in a shame-honor culture, such as China, Korea, Japan, Vietnam, Cambodia, Philippines, then it's all about saving face, not being shamed, not having yourself looked at as bad. So that comes into play in different ways, like not wanting to directly tell somebody that they're wrong, because you don't want to bring shame to them. If somebody is wrong, you don't want to shame them. In Asian cultures, like here in the Philippines, students don't want to raise their hand in class. They don't want to ask a question. Why don't they ask a question? Because if the student asks a question that the professor doesn't know, you bring shame to your professor, right? So if I don't know the answer, now I'm ashamed, and you've brought shame to your professor. And so they won't ask a question because they're trying to save you from they're trying to keep your honor and avoid giving you shame. If you do something wrong, in America, we would come and tell you directly, hey, right to your face, we talk to you, we say, hey, you did something wrong. But in a shame honor culture, that would bring shame to the person by saying they did something wrong. And so instead, they might send out a message to everybody just to remind everybody of what the rules are. So instead of telling one person you were wrong, they're going to tell everybody, remember the rules, okay? Follow the rules so that nobody does the wrong thing. Even though it was only one person that messed up, they won't tell them because they don't want to bring shame on them. So this changes how you behave. The third one is fear power. Fear power-based cultures deal with the need to appease unseen powers and to live in peace with these gods and spirits. The fears are directed towards other men or other tribes, as well as toward the supernatural, and involve explanations of how the world works, with sickness being a sign of gods or spirits reaping revenge. If bad things strike, there are procedures to appease offending powers. And to oversee these principles, a priesthood comes into being. Mediums, witch doctors, priests are the intercessors. Okay, so fear power, this is one that you should be familiar with, where you live in fear of the spirits and you work to gain power over those spirits by doing the right rituals or the right ceremonies to gain power over the spirits. And if bad things happen, that probably means you didn't do the right thing and the spirits are angry. So now you live in fear that the spirits are going to hurt you. So you have fear versus power. All right, so we have mostly African cultures, South American cultures, and Melanesian cultures that have fear power. You've got mostly Asian and Middle Eastern cultures that have shame honor, and Europe and North America that have guilt innocence, Australia, New Zealand, guilt innocence. Okay, so 3 ways of looking at the world. All right, and so those are the worldviews. So we're not going to talk much more about all this stuff because this isn't a class on culture and cultural. We're just touching on it a little bit because we're talking about missions and global missions as well. So just being aware that if you go to another place, they have different ideas that don't revolve around the PNG ideas of fear and power. They have ideas of maybe shame or guilt that are what they're dealing with. So just something to be aware of. And then if we look at the different cultural values, like I said, we talked about cultural values at the beginning of the class from one anthropologist's perspective. So now there's another way to look at cultural values, such as high context and low context. So every culture you can divide into high context and low context. So high context cultures are relational, collectivist, intuitive, and contemplative. They emphasize interpersonal relationships. Okay, so high context has to do with, sorry, one second. Sorry, my children were being loud. Okay. So high context cultures, they tend to these cultures, there's things that are just supposed to be understood. The words, like it says here, words are not so important as context, which might include the speaker's tone of voice, facial expression, gestures, posture, even a person's family history and status. So if a person is high context, they might use less words but mean stuff that you don't understand if you don't know, if you're not part of their culture. You have to gain the meaning of what they say based on the situation that they're in. Let me see if I forgot to find a video. But for example, let me see if I can find it really quick, actually. Okay. I can't get it. Okay, so, but as an example, okay, so I'll tell you this, just let me finish this real quick and I'll tell you the example. A Japanese manager explained his culture's communication style to an American. We are homogenous people and don't have to speak as much as you have to do here. When we say one word, we understand 10. But here you have to say 10 to understand one. So high context communication tends to be more indirect and more formal. Flowery language, humility, and elaborate apologies are typical. So if you're high context, you use less words, but mean more. Like he says, we say one word, and a Japanese person would understand 10 words from that one word. But in America, which is the opposite, we are low context. We need lots of words, or we won't understand. So low context, like North America and Western Europe, logical, linear, individualistic. People from low context cultures value logic, facts, and directness. Solving a problem means lining up the facts and evaluating one after another. Decisions are based on facts rather than intuition. Discussions end with actions, and communicators are expected to be straightforward, concise, and efficient in telling what action is expected. To be absolutely clear, they strive to use precise words and intend them to be taken literally. Okay, so in a low context culture, we want you to lay out exactly the expectations. Tell me exactly what to do. Maybe even make it first step, do this. Second, do this. Third, do this. So give me the instructions. So we need lots of words in low context cultures. In high context, the meaning is gathered from what is said. So, example, if you have two people in a car, or two people talking, let's say, how can I do this? Let's see. Okay. So here we have high context, low context. Okay. So if you have a high context person that says, I'm, no, this isn't going to work. Let me see. All right, I can do this. I'm going to fly to, let's see. Okay. So this is our high context person says, here's high context over here. I'm going to fly to Medang on Wednesday. Over here, we have our low context person. So he would respond, sounds fun. See you when you get back. Okay. She said, I'm going to fly to Medang on Wednesday. He says, sounds fun. See you when you get back. She thinks now, why is he being so rude to me? Because why is she thinking this? Well, if we change this to a high context to a high context, oopsie. Okay, she says, I'm going to fly to Medang on Monday. If he's also high context, he says, would you like a ride to the airport? And then she says, yes, thank you. Okay, because she was high context, there was this expectation that when she says, I'm going to fly to Medang on Wednesday, there's more to her words than she said. She is meaning, I'm flying and I would like a ride. But she didn't say that. She expects you to get it because she's high context. But if you are low context, you have to tell me everything. So let's change this. Erase, delete all. Okay. So now we have low context to low context. We say, I'm flying to Medang on Wednesday. Okay, in a low context, they would add on, would you be willing to take me to the airport? Because we have, in low context, we have to have it all spelled out. You have to tell us exactly what you want. I'm an American, and so there's something to keep in mind. If you want me to do something, when I'm your teacher, you need to tell me exactly. Because if you're high context, I'm not going to necessarily understand what you're saying unless you tell me. If you just said, I'm flying to Medang on Wednesday, my thought is, okay, thank you for the information. You told me, thank you. I'm not thinking, oh, they want to ride. Because then if you ask, hey, I need a ride, then I'd say, oh, sure. But if you just say, I'm flying to Medang on Wednesday, my response would be, okay, have fun. Because it's a different ideas of how we communicate. All right, so high context, low context. Next, time. This is similar to what we talked about in the other basic values, time versus event. Here they say monochronic. which is just a monochronic, meaning one time. So time is thought to be a ribbon or a road that can be sliced only one way. Time sets up boundaries. Promptness is defined by conformity to the clock. People schedule their lives to make the best or most efficient use of time. So this is the on the other scale, this is the time oriented. Compared to polychronic is the event oriented. Time is a point rather than a ribbon or road. There's multi-level simultaneous involvement. Interruptions are not irritants. Rigid adherence to schedules is not valued. Promptness is not defined by a clock, by relationship. So this is more of the event orientation. This means that if somebody shows up at your house, if you show up at an American's house and you haven't made an appointment, you haven't scheduled it, it might be viewed as an interruption. Okay, you came to my house unannounced, you didn't tell me you were coming, so now I have to stop what I was doing, and I feel like I've been interrupted. Now I have to come and talk to you. That's the monochronic way of an American's view, versus polychronic is that interruptions are not really interruptions. It's just the way time is flowing. So whatever comes next is what the next thing is. If somebody comes to my house, that's the next event. That's what I'm dealing with. It's not an interruption. I'm not upset. It's just the next activity that's happening. So that's again, P&G is going to be more polychronic, where things they just flow, and it's not the clock that tells us, it's the people that tell us what's happening next. All right. Okay. So some more ideas about culture and the values that we have. We'll go through each of these here. So power distance. So we have these are different dimensions of culture. Power distance, individualism and collectivism, masculinity and femininity, uncertainty avoidance, long-term orientation versus short-term, and indulgence versus restraint. Okay, so first one here, power distance. Okay, this definition is long, but basically it just depends on how do you deal with the people around you and the different social status that they have. So low power distance. I am from a very low power distance culture where we want everybody to be equal, and we're not so concerned about what job you have or position you have. We don't have any problem. If I'm not a doctor, I have no problem talking to a doctor by their first name. I have no problem talking to a politician or to the leader of a company, because we want everything to be equal. In a high power distance culture, like here in the Philippines, there's a big separation of people with high social status and low social status, and they don't interact very much. In the Philippines, everybody has a title. They won't ever call you just your first name unless you're like very good friends, very close friends. Here, everybody calls me Pastor Stephen or Brother Stephen. They don't call me just Stephen. In P&G, you mostly are all call me Stephen, which is fine by me. I'm low power distance, and I don't need a title. We feel like we should all be the same. In America, we don't need titles. We're all equal. But high power distance culture like here, there's separation. If somebody's a doctor, you call them doctor, whatever their name is. You call them pastor, whatever. You call them what you use titles, and you don't talk to or associate with people much higher than you or lower than you. There's a big separation of power. All right, so individualism and collectivism. So some ideas that some proverbs here. These come from different cultures. The tallest tree gets knocked down by the wind first. So this is saying that the individual who stands up the tallest is the one that's going to be knocked down. So this is more of a collectivist idea. We should all be the same. Don't let one person be above the others, because if they are, then they're going to get knocked down. The nail that sticks up will be hammered down. So again, it's not about the individual. It's not about one person. It's about all of us as a group. Versus in an individual culture, the squeaky wheel gets the grease. This is a saying from America where if an individual speaks up and makes a loud noise, if one person stands up and talks a lot, they're going to get what they want. They get the grease. They're making the noise, they get the grease. They get the whoever it is that's making the biggest mess or the biggest noise gets what they want. That's what happens. They get to decide everything. In collective societies, parents teach children early in life not to cling to their own individual rights, but to ensure that group needs are given higher priority than individual needs. So this is talking about do you think more about the group, the whole family, the whole tribe, or do you think more about you as an individual? Who is your priority? Making yourself the best you can be, or making your group the best it can be? So again, P&G is very collectivist. You're about the whole group. Let's let the whole group go together. In America, we're very individual. We want each person to do their best, and they don't care about the rest of the group. They want to get the best for themselves. It's a different idea of how to your priorities in life. So here's the values that we find in those two different groups. So in a collectivist group, you want to belong to everybody else. You want to fit in. You want to match what everybody else is doing. In individualist culture, you want to be unique. You want to stand out. You want everybody to look at you like, hey, look at me. I'm different than you. I'm better, or I'm different. Okay, I want to be unique. Do you want to promote your own goals or the goals of everybody else? So it's just a different way that we think about our society. I have 8 minutes left. All right, masculinity versus femininity. Okay, so looking at the sides of culture, the masculinity side of this dimension represents a preference in society for achievement, heroism, assertiveness, material rewards for success. Society at large is more competitive. So if you have a culture that's more masculine, they want you to have high achievement, to be brave, to be assertive, to go for material rewards. Okay, this is working hard for getting ahead again. This is what the culture values. A feminine culture, a femininity culture, preference for cooperation, modesty, caring for the weak, and quality of life. Society at life is more conscious oriented. There's nothing to do with like, I'm not sure why they use masculine and feminine for this, but it's not about whether they're a feminine culture, but it's just the values they have of whether they're going for achievement or going for cooperation and caring for each other. So a difference here in how you operate in your society. Uncertainty avoidance. The same crisis oriented I talked about earlier. Crisis oriented. So if you have uncertainty avoidance, if you have high uncertainty avoidance, you try to avoid crisis. You try to avoid. This is the crisis avoidance level. High uncertainty avoidance is the same thing as crisis oriented. So how do you deal with a future that can never be known? Should you try to control the future or just let it happen? If you have high uncertainty avoidance, like in America, or if you're crisis oriented, you try to control the future, try to prevent the bad things from coming by preparing now for what might happen later. It's not about like the spirits kind of thing, like the fear power, like we're not trying to control the future through power. We're just trying to plan ahead for the future. Or do you just let the future happen? Just whatever comes, let it happen. Okay, that would be a low uncertainty avoidance. Countries exhibiting strong uncertainty avoidance maintain rigid codes of belief and behaviors and are intolerant of unorthodox behaviors and ideas. Weak uncertainty avoidance societies maintain a more relaxed attitude in which practice counts more than principles. All right, so again, we're doing crisis versus non-crisis, uncertainty versus high uncertainty avoidance versus low uncertainty avoidance. Okay, long-term orientation versus short-term orientation. It's a little bit like the uncertainty avoidance where we're looking ahead. Every society has to maintain some links to its own past while dealing with the challenges of the present and the future. Societies prioritize these two goals differently. So if you have a long-term orientation, you would score high in this one, and you're trying to plan ahead for the future to prepare, taking you're being more it says more thrift, so like being not spending too much, you're saving, you're not going through all of your food